1957. An idea was born inside a small California prison, and half a century later, it became one of the FBI's top targets. That organization was called the Mexican Mafia. In this video, we'll meet 10 men who turned prison walls into the birthplace of a criminal network. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, so we can see how far the reach of La M has spread across this map. And trust me, with every passing minute, things will only get more dangerous. Number 10. Luis Huero Buff Flores. In 1957, the Duell Vocational Institution in California was filled with young inmates from every kind of street background. Mexican-American gangs that once fought each other on the streets brought their rivalries inside, and fights, stabbings, and revenge became part of daily life. Amid that chaos, one inmate thought differently, Luis Huero Buff Flores. He believed that if they kept fighting each other, they would always be prey. Flores began reaching out to respected figures from street groups like White Fence, Hawaiian Gardens, and Clanton 14, urging them to put aside neighborhood boundaries and unite for protection and control. That's how La M, the letter M in Spanish, short for Mexican Mafia, was born. At first, it was only a self-defense alliance, but it soon evolved into a disciplined organization built on order and fear. When Flores and Rodolfo Cheyenne Cadena were transferred to San Quentin in the early 1960s, they created the first code, a blood oath. In by blood, out by blood. Every member needed a sponsor, and betrayal meant death. Loyalty to La M came before everything else. From that point, the group had structure, leaders who gave orders and soldiers who carried them out. Flores and his circle soon controlled illicit operations inside the prison, from drugs and gambling to protection rackets. Every transaction paid a tax, and through the Sureños gangs in Southern California, this system quickly spread beyond prison walls. Ironically, when officials tried to separate members to break the group apart, they only helped it expand. Each transfer planted La M roots in a new facility, and the Buff Laws, as many inmates called them, became unwritten rules for generations of Sureños. Few photographs of Flores exist. He never became as well known as his successors, but decades later, FBI recordings still mentioned the rules Buff had written. According to several accounts, Flores died in 1991, reportedly from alcohol poisoning. He passed quietly, yet the code said to be created by that first generation continued to endure. Proof that an idea born behind bars could become a lasting power structure. Number 9. Rodolfo Cheyenne Cadena. By the mid-1960s, a name began appearing repeatedly in California prison reports. Rodolfo Cheyenne Cadena. Few realized this man would ignite one of the deadliest rivalries in U.S. prison history. Cadena was born in 1943 and grew up in Bakersfield, California. At a young age, he was convicted and sent to the Duell Vocational Institution, the same place where Luis Huero Buff Flores had just founded La M. Cadena quickly stood out as disciplined, organized, and capable of influencing others, a rare quality in such a violent environment. After several clashes, he was transferred to San Quentin, home to some of the most dangerous inmates in the state. What was meant to separate La M members only made the group stronger. There, Cadena helped reinforce the blood code. In by blood, out by blood. Betrayal meant death, and loyalty was absolute. By the early 1970s, Cadena had become one of La M's key figures. According to investigative records, he was among the first to suggest that members outside prison should join community groups in East Los Angeles to build a positive image while maintaining influence for the organization. But during that same period, tension between La M and Nuestra Familia reached its peak. Some reports suggest Cadena tried to start peace talks to end the cycle of violence, but many inside La M saw that as weakness. On December 17, 1972, at the California Institution for Men in Chino, Cadena was attacked by multiple members of Nuestra Familia. According to court documents, he suffered numerous knife wounds and was thrown from the third floor. He did not survive the assault. Investigators later described it as one of the most brutal killings ever recorded in California's prison system. Cadena's death ended any chance of reconciliation and ignited an all-out war between the two groups, a conflict that would last for decades. 20 years later, the film American Me was released, with its main character, Montoya Santana, loosely inspired by Cadena. But the movie only showed a fragment of the truth, the tragedy of a man caught between peace and loyalty. Rodolfo Cheyenne Cadena did not live long enough to see the consequences of the system he helped build. In that world, violent decisions outweighed peaceful intentions, and loyalty was measured in blood. Number 8. Renee Boxer Enriquez. Renee "Boxer" Enriquez was known as one of the most influential figures inside La M, the Mexican Mafia, a powerful criminal organization born within California's prison system. For years, he gave orders, collected taxes, and enforced punishment. Then, one day, he made a decision few could imagine: to walk away from the very brotherhood he once served. Born in 1962 in Los Angeles, Enriquez grew up in a neighborhood divided by gangs. He joined La M in the early 1980s, when he was in his early 20s. Within just a few years, he went through the organization's initiation ritual and became a carnal, a fully recognized member. From then on, the name Boxer echoed through prisons across California. According to court records and Enriquez's later testimony, he once ordered or took part in several violent incidents, including 2 homicides in 1989. After receiving a life sentence, Enriquez was transferred to Pelican Bay State Prison, a high-security facility that held some of the state's most dangerous inmates. Even there, he continued directing rackets that involved narcotics, gambling, and extortion, collecting taxes from Sereno gangs operating on the streets. In later interviews, Enriquez said that during the mid-1990s, he and other leaders ordered an end to drive-by shootings among Sereno gangs. The decision, he explained, was not out of compassion, but control. By stopping the infighting, they could ensure a steady flow of tax money to La M. It was a strategic move that expanded the group's influence without drawing more attention from law enforcement. Then, in 2003, Enriquez shocked both allies and investigators by declaring he would drop out, leaving La M. Such a choice was considered an informal death sentence. Yet instead of disappearing, he began cooperating with authorities, revealing how La M operated. From its green light orders to punish traitors, to coded messages known as kites, and the way money moved from the streets into prison accounts. Enriquez soon became a valuable source for the FBI, the DEA, and other law enforcement agencies. He lectured at training programs for prison security officers, explaining how criminal organizations sustain control and discipline behind bars. But that cooperation made him a target. For years, he lived in isolation under strict protection measures, separated from other inmates for his own safety. Amid long-standing public debate over whether a former killer should ever be released, California's parole board approved his conditional release in July 2022, after multiple denials by the governor in previous years. His exact location and living conditions remain undisclosed for security reasons. Renee "Boxer" Enriquez's story captures the paradox of La M, an organization built on absolute loyalty, yet the man who understood it best was the one who broke its blood oath. Number 7. Johnny "Crow" Martinez. One mugshot, 2 very different portraits. To friends, he was warm and charismatic. To prosecutors, he was the central figure running the Mexican Mafia's tax network in Orange County, California. His name was Johnny "Crow" Martinez. Martinez grew up in Southern California during an era when street gangs and prison influence were rapidly spreading. In 1994, at just 18 years old, he was convicted of second-degree homicide following a knife incident. Nearly 3 decades later, in December 2023, that conviction was overturned under California's revised accomplice liability law, allowing him to seek release while facing new federal charges. According to federal prosecutors, Martinez was charged under the RICO statute, accused of running an extortion network that collected taxes from multiple Sereno gangs, directed acts of violence, and organized a system of illegal income from narcotics and gambling. The case gained national attention after a 2017 shooting in the city of Orange, where 3 members were convicted for acting under Martinez's alleged orders. Wiretap recordings captured him instructing a subordinate to shoot him in the head to assert dominance. Those recordings became key evidence in the federal indictment filed in 2022. Martinez refused to cooperate as a witness against the network. In 2024, he was granted permission to represent himself in court, a rare move in a major federal case. Prosecutors warned that Martinez might expose the organization's inner structure during trial. Meanwhile, by 2025, reports indicated that federal authorities were re-evaluating whether to pursue the death penalty in his case. Investigative documents also linked Martinez to an expansion of La M's tax system beyond prison walls. According to reporting from the Los Angeles Times, he and several associates allegedly ran at least 3 unlicensed drug dispensaries, several underground casinos, and protection rackets across Orange County. Each group was required to pay a percentage before operating. Handwritten prison letters, or kites, along with intercepted phone calls revealed a highly organized financial network. Despite the severity of his charges, Martinez still maintained influence beyond prison. When news broke about his overturned 1994 conviction, some friends and community members urged the court to give him another chance, describing him as someone who had quietly helped with local charity efforts before the federal case began. Law enforcement officials, however, viewed those gestures as a public mask for a sophisticated criminal enterprise. Johnny Crow Martinez's story reflects two sides of the same coin: the image of a man with community ties and the reality of a tightly structured criminal organization. If convicted, he could face the death sentence, a rare possibility for organized crime leaders in the United States today. Martinez remains on trial. Every word he speaks in court could expose the inner workings of La Ime, long hidden from the public eye. For California's prison and law enforcement community, his case is more than one man's fate. It's a test of how far the Mexican Mafia's power still reaches. Number 6. Michael Mosque Torres. According to investigative records, Michael Mosque Torres was described by authorities as one of the most influential figures within La Ime, the Mexican Mafia network that operates throughout California's prison system. Despite serving a sentence of 133 years to life, he continued to manage and control revenue streams from behind bars. On July 6, 2023, Torres was fatally attacked at California State Prison in Sacramento, where he was serving his time. Torres came from the San Fernando Valley, a long-standing center for various Sereno gangs. Court documents show that he had prior convictions for attempted homicide, weapons possession, and witness intimidation. After being incarcerated, Torres became what investigators called a sanctioned tax collector, a title reserved for La Ime members authorized to collect payments from street gangs and deliver the money to the organization. From the early 2000s through 2022, Torres was alleged to have overseen narcotics, gambling, and protection rackets inside Los Angeles County jails. According to the Los Angeles Times, he maintained control through smuggled phones and coded prison letters known as kites, enforcing discipline through threats and secret green light orders. Inmates who failed to pay taxes reportedly faced immediate retaliation. On the morning of July 6, 2023, at approximately 9:23 a.m., Torres was attacked by two inmates in the yard area. He was transported to a nearby hospital but passed away a few hours later. Prison authorities identified the suspects as Ray Barciji, Cisco Martinez, and Juan Angel Martinez, both serving long-term sentences. Following the incident, the Sacramento facility was placed on lockdown as investigators examined the motive. The death of Michael Mosque Torres triggered a chain reaction within La Ime's network. 8 days later, a woman he referred to as his wife was found deceased at her mother's home in San Fernando. Local authorities suggested that the case might be connected to disputes over power and money in Torres' former operations. Not long after, Joseph Capone Hutchinson, a close associate of Torres, was also found deceased following a violent incident inside the Los Angeles County Jail. The killing of Michael Mosque Torres revealed how fragile power can be inside the Mexican Mafia. When the man controlling a financial system is removed, the temporary order inside the prison collapses. In the end, Torres met his death within the same institution where he was once accused of running its operations. Number 5. Manuel Snuffy Quantero. In June 2025, a federal indictment listing 19 names sent shockwaves through Los Angeles law enforcement circles. At the center of that list was Manuel Snuffy Quantero, accused of ordering the killing of a well-known rapper. According to prosecutors, and reporting from the Los Angeles Times, that rapper was Swifty Blue, and what made the case even more alarming was that the alleged order came from inside a prison. Quantero, about 49 years old in 2025, came from the Paramount area of Los Angeles. Court records indicate prior convictions for assault, methamphetamine production, and unlawful detention. On June 18, 2025, both federal and county authorities charged 19 suspects in the alleged plot against the rapper, naming Quantero as one of the main defendants. Prosecutors claimed that starting around December 2022, Quantero or his associates issued on-site orders to gang factions in Paramount, Compton, and downtown Los Angeles. Investigative files and media reports described how the orders spread. Inmates inside Los Angeles County jails and associates on the outside coordinated through prison letters known as kites, contraband cell phones, and even social media messages. Quantero was accused of issuing a green light command, authorizing a target to be attacked or eliminated if they refused to comply. The assault on the rapper inside a correctional facility was allegedly part of that broader conspiracy. Beyond the rapper case, in late July 2025, Quantero faced another indictment tied to the 2010 homicide of a nightclub owner in Downey. According to records, witness statements had existed since 2014, yet formal charges were not filed until 11 years later. raising questions about how deeply the network's influence reached. Quantero has maintained his innocence. Investigators allege that Quantero was more than just an inmate. He was said to have directed operations, controlled finances, and maintained discipline from behind bars. The system of tax collection, outside enforcers, and coordinated subordinates represented the power structure he was accused of managing for years. The story of Manuel "Snuffy" Quantero reflects a harsh reality. In California, power inside and outside prison can function as one. When a single command crosses those prison walls, it can spark a chain of violence, leading to conspiracies and federal indictments that stretch far beyond the cell block. For Quantero, the fight is no longer just about his past. It's about whether he truly stands at the center of a network that prosecutors have long tried to dismantle. Until the verdict is read, one question remains: who really stands behind those orders? Number 4. Jose Fox Landa Rodriguez. In 2013, as the Mexican Mafia expanded its influence beyond U.S. borders, one name surfaced in an ATF wiretap recording: Jose Fox Landa Rodriguez. From behind bars in Los Angeles, he was accused of running drug operations, collecting protection payments, and negotiating a possible alliance with the Mexican cartel La Familia Michoacana. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, Landa Rodriguez, originally from Michoacan, Mexico, had been incarcerated since 1998 for serious offenses. Between 2012 and 2016, he was accused of controlling much of the underground economy inside Los Angeles County jails. Prosecutors said his group collected taxes from narcotics, gambling, and extortion rackets using intimidation and violence to maintain control. A former associate testified that the Dirty Thirds model generated over $20,000 a month from the men's Central, Twin Towers, and Wayside facilities. That same year, secret recordings gathered by ATF agents suggested that Landa Rodriguez was one of the first La M members approached in a plan to unite La M and La Familia. According to the tapes, the cartel offered methamphetamine in exchange for protection of its members imprisoned in the United States. The deal fell apart when undercover informant Ralph Perico Rocha, working for the AATF, turned the recordings over to federal authorities. Prosecutors later revealed that Landa Rodriguez used smuggled phones, coded letters, and encrypted emails to run his operations. One decrypted message from 2015 read, "Don't let it step into our backyard," which investigators said referred to an attack order against a rival faction inside the facility. After the failed negotiation, investigations expanded through the Los Angeles County jail system. By 2018, during a statewide RICO sweep, his name appeared once again among suspected prison leaders. He escaped some of the federal charges due to lack of evidence, but in March 2025, he pled guilty to racketeering, admitting that La M used homicide and kidnapping to maintain control. 6 months later, in September 2025, he entered a no-contest plea to criminal threats and received 2 more years in prison, followed by a deportation order to Mexico after serving his term. From 1998 to 2025, the name Fox Landa Rodriguez was tied to more than 2 decades of allegations, from jailhouse control to cartel negotiations. And even as his sentence ended with deportation, the La M structure he was once accused of shaping continued to thrive, using the same hidden channels he once commanded. Number 3. Peter "Sana" Ojeda. In the early 1990s at El Salvador Park in Santa Ana, a former F-Troop gang member gathered Latino street leaders and announced a new rule. He said, "No more drive-bys between Latinos. From now on, every group pays a percentage if they want to do business." That man was Peter "Sana" Ojeda, a name that, according to the FBI, became the symbol of La M's power in Orange County. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, Ojeda turned both prison and the streets into 2 ends of one system. Even while serving time in federal facilities beginning in 2005, he continued to issue orders, collect payments, and enforce discipline. Investigators said his network operated through a model called the Dirty Thirds, taxing drug sales, gambling, and protection rackets, with much of the profit funneled back into La M's main fund. In 2011, the FBI launched Operation Black Flag, indicting 99 people linked to the Peter Ojeda criminal enterprise. Prosecutors alleged that even from inside prison, Ojeda sent orders through handwritten letters, smuggled phones, and trusted intermediaries. One of those intermediaries, Susan Rodriguez, was described as his secretary, responsible for relaying messages and transferring money. By 2013, investigators recorded dozens of calls believed to contain green light orders against those who refused to pay. In January 2016, after a 4-week trial, a jury convicted Ojeda on RICO and VICAR charges, using violence to advance racketeering. In May that year, Judge James V. Salna sentenced him to 15 years in prison, saying Ojeda remains a danger to this community, even at 74 years old. Ojeda passed away on June 7, 2018, at a federal medical facility. According to media reports, the cause was believed to be cardiac arrest during surgery. He died after nearly 50 years inside the system he helped shape, a structure that turned prisons into command centers for street gangs across California. Even after Ojeda's death, the system of taxes, order, and coded commands he established continued under La M's Southern California branches. The name Sana, short for Santa Ana, became more than a nickname. It became a mark of the era when La M's influence extended far beyond prison walls, reaching every block in the city of Orange. Number 2. Benjamin Topo Peters. On July 16, 1991, inside an interview room at the Los Angeles County Jail, inmate Salvador Mon Buenrostro was repeatedly attacked and stabbed nearly 20 times. The assault took place as he sat before his attorney. According to court documents, 2 names surfaced: Renee Boxer Enriquez and Benjamin Topo Peters. Prosecutors described it as an internal La M purge during a period of violent power struggles following the death of Joe Peglick Morgan. Benjamin Topo Peters, whose nickname means mole in Spanish, was known as a man capable of issuing orders from behind bars and keeping the Serrano network under control. According to federal records, beginning in the early 1990s, he helped organize the taxation system over Latino street gangs. Each clique operating on Southern California streets was required to pay a percentage of its narcotics, gambling, and extortion profits to La M. Anyone who disobeyed could be green-lighted, meaning marked for attack on sight within the prison system. In 1995, a major RICO case was filed, indicting more than a dozen people, including Peters. Testimony from Ernest Chuco Castro revealed that Peters personally taught him the rules of La M at Chino State Prison, lessons about recruitment, loyalty, and discipline. Prosecutors cited this as evidence that he maintained the organization's structure even from inside a cell. On September 4, 1997, Benjamin Peters was sentenced to life in prison. Judge Ronald S.W. Liu denied his unusual request to marry his fiancée in the courtroom. Reporters described Peters wearing aviator glasses, smiling, and blowing a kiss toward his fiancée, Sally Soto, as deputies escorted him away. 2 years later, Sally was arrested in a separate RICO case, accused of relaying messages and money between Peters and his associates. After 1997, Peters was held at Pelican Bay State Prison, where investigators believed he continued to exert influence through coded letters and contraband phones. Media reports stated that he passed away on February 18, 2001 at the age of 60, after years of treatment for cancer. From the 1991 interview room attack to his life sentence in 1997 and his death inside prison in 2001, Benjamin Topo Peters' story illustrates how La M operated, enforcing rules and maintaining order from behind steel bars. Even after his death, the generations that followed continued applying the principles he helped establish. Number 1. Joe Peglick Morgan. Los Angeles, late 1940s. A Croatian-American teenager named Joe Morgan was arrested at 16 after a fatal shooting involving his mother's partner. According to court and newspaper records, Morgan was convicted of homicide and sent to a California state prison for the first time. Over the years, officials noted how he assimilated into the Mexican inmate community, learned Spanish, and became one of the first figures credited with shaping La M, the organization later known as the Mexican Mafia. Though not Latino by birth, Morgan was widely respected for his intelligence, calm demeanor, and deep understanding of prison hierarchy. Throughout the 1960s and 70s, he served as a crucial link between Serrano street gangs on the outside and La M leaders behind bars. Investigators described him as the man who connected the street and prison worlds, laying the foundation for the tax and order system that La M would follow for decades. According to federal records, under Morgan's direction, La M established the taxation model, requiring Latino gangs outside prison to pay a share of their profits from drugs, gambling, and protection rackets in exchange for permission to operate. That money cycled back into prisons to fund attorneys, weapons, and member support. Authorities later identified this era as a turning point, when La M evolved from a violent inmate group into a structured organization with consistent income. Morgan spent his life serving multiple sentences, including for homicide and drug trafficking. By the early 1990s, he was imprisoned at Corcoran State Prison under a life sentence. In 1993, doctors diagnosed him with terminal liver cancer. According to the Los Angeles Times, on November 9, 1993, Joe Peglick Morgan passed away at the age of 64, ending nearly 50 years within California's prison system. By the time of his death, La M.A. had established a presence in nearly every major prison across the western United States. The system of taxes, orders, and councils that Morgan created continued long after him. Federal investigations in the years that followed linked successors like Benjamin Topo Peters and Peter Sana Ojeda to the same framework he once built. Joe Peglick Morgan was not only a historic figure in La M.A., he was proof of how one individual, even from outside the original community, could shape one of the most powerful and dangerous criminal structures ever to exist inside the American prison system.